And now on BBC News, your questions answered. Welcome to Your Questions Answered. Throughout the day, viewers have been sending us their questions about yesterday's budget, as well as what the new childcare support measures mean for parents. With me here to get answers to those questions is our cost of living correspondent Shannon Pite, who's really been earning his keep the last few days, and we're going to make sure that continues today. We're also joined by Shannon Pite, who's Director of Communications at the Early Years Alliance, which works to empower the early years workforce and support families. Shannon, really appreciate you joining us this afternoon as well. So we've got quite a lot, as you won't be surprised to hear, of really fantastic questions. Thank you if you've sent them in. Shannon, let's start with you. David asks, why is childcare so expensive in the UK?
Thank you. I think it would be remiss of me to not point out that we at the Alliance would always argue that when we're talking about early years provision, we are talking about education as well as care. So if I talk about early years provision, I know it's a bit jargony, but please bear with me. That's why. David, the answer is underfunding. So we have what the government terms free childcare offers in this country at the moment. We have 15 and 30 hours for 3 and 4-year-olds, and we also have 15 hours a week for disadvantaged 2-year-olds. The government is supposed to provide the funding needed for nurseries, preschools and childminders to deliver that care and education. The money they provide does not cover the cost of delivery, and so providers have to find ways to make up that shortfall. So historically, that has been things like charging higher costs for younger children who do not get government-funded hours. It might also be that if you're a parent who is eligible for, say, the 30 hours, but you take up 35 hours, that those extra 5 hours are charged at a very high rate. And it can also mean other things like structuring your funded sessions in a way that creates a system where parents end up paying more than they might expect. So I have a daughter who is nearly 4, who is eligible for the 30 hours, and her nursery limits the funded hours to 6 a day. So if you go beyond 6 a day, even if you don't take up more than 30 hours a week, you end up paying for more. And that is because of funding. That is because providers have no choice but to try and find some way to make up the shortfall in funding that government has left, or go out of business. And I think it's just worth quickly pointing out that when we talk about underfunding, it's not theoretical. We at the Alliance conducted a freedom of information investigation on the early entitlements, and after 2 years of battling intervention of the Information Commissioner's Office, we obtained private government policy documents from 2015, where the government explicitly says in black and white that fully funding the early entitlements was not affordable, and that the level of funding that they were going to put in would lead to cost increases, particularly for parents of younger children. So when we ask why costs are so expensive in this country, it's not an accident, it's actually built into the policy design.
And yet we're trying to give parents the option of going back to work. We need to do something, and that's exactly what the government's trying to do with in the announcement yesterday. We'll come back to childcare in a moment, but Kevin, John asks, if inflation comes down, can we really expect prices to fall too?
Well, it's the rate of increase in prices which is slowing. So remember, inflation, you've got a bottle of milk, it costs £1. In a year's time, it costs £1.05. Then you've got an inflation rate of 5%. The current inflation rate, 10.1% according to the latest figures, and that is going to come down to, according to the official forecasters, the Office of Budget Responsibility, by the end of the year 2.9%. So prices will be rising at 2.9% a year. The target, remember, the government's target given to the Bank of England is that they should rise at 2% a year. So it's still a little bit off that. But of course, it's more than just a number. The inflation rate has been used in pay negotiations. It's used in terms of uprating our benefits and the state pension every year. And interestingly, actually, it's a bit of a look at our spending habits as well, because at the start of this week we had the virtual basket of goods and services, which is used to chart inflation. They basically look at the prices of 700 goods and services, and they had the annual review of what's in that basket. And we had Alco Pops coming out frozen berries going in. As you know, Martine, they're used in your fruit smoothie. So it gives us a little indication of our sort of changing habits too. But it is an incredibly important statistic, and obviously charts the rising cost of living, which we've been looking at so closely over the last year or so.
It's almost like you're with me at the liquidizer at the counter. Shannon, why is the childcare scheme only for during term time? Because a lot of people don't just work during term time, do they? It's all year round.
It's a really good question, and honestly, I couldn't give you the answer. It's a really bizarre policy decision to have a headline early years policy and only make it applicable during the term time when, as you say, the majority of parents work all year round. And what it does mean is that when a parent is accessing the 15 or the 30 hours for the first time, it can be quite a shock to find out that what you thought was 30 hours for 52 weeks of the year isn't. And so as the offer is extended, it's really important, if you're a parent that's going to be taking this up for the first time, that you're aware of that. What the offers are really in reality, what we describe as the 15-hour offer, is 570 hours a year. And if you're getting the 30 hours offer, what you're actually getting is 1,140 hours a year. And what happens is a lot of nurseries, preschools and childminders who deliver those offers will stretch it. So that means that they, instead of having 30 hours for 38 weeks of the year, they will offer, for example, 22 hours a week for 52 weeks of the year. So it means that the entitlement isn't what it kind of says on the tin. Alternatively, parents should be aware that if their provider doesn't stretch the offer, but they take up childcare and early education all year round, it means that come half term, Easter, Christmas and the summer holidays, their invoices are going to show a much higher bill than they might have been expecting.
It makes your head spin, doesn't it? Trying to navigate all of this stuff. And you're explaining it really clearly.